I am Lynda Simkins. I was Linda Master Giovanni when I started here in 1980, and today's date is March 6, 2024. Well, my connection to the farm is that I was executive director for 38 years. Um, that's my connection. A long time. I was working in 4-H for Plymouth County out of Hanson. I was a recent graduate of UNH in plant science. And I saw this job appear in a 3-line item in the Boston Globe in the classifieds. And I went, that's my job. And I came and I talked my way into this job at the age of 24. And they gave it to me. And the rest is history. My father's Italian, my mother's German, and they came from homesteading families and backgrounds. We raised turkeys, we had rabbits, we hunted mushrooms, we did all that kind of stuff as I was growing up. So actual farming, no, but I knew I wanted to farm a piece of land. And this was the best opportunity for me to do that without a lot of personal funds. When I started, the only thing that was here was the barn. There was no toilet. There was running water in the barn, and I hauled the water for all the animals. There was a flock of chickens. The chicken coop was where the toddler's garden is, and there was, I believe it was 12 hens and 19 roosters in that chicken coop. So the first task was to get that under balance. I had an office in the barn, and I had a greenhouse off the barn, which was my heat. The town did provide a small office space in the center of town through the Youth and Human Resource Agency of the town, which is what I was hired under, the auspices under that. At that point, it wasn't a town position, it was a 1099, and my salary was $10,000. So that's how different it was. There was no other infrastructure here, none. So everything else you see here was built over time for whatever use we needed it at that time. It was all based around community. It was every little thing I needed or desired or whatever was controlled by the amount of community that we had around us. If I needed, like, egg cartons, I never spent a penny on egg cartons. I never spent a penny on maple syrup bottles. Things like that brought every little individual in the town of Natick and surrounding towns had a reason to be here for themselves, whether it was to walk in with an egg carton or whether it was to drop your pumpkins to the animals or your Christmas tree to the animals or, bring me a big bag of maple syrup bottles. And when I was thinking about this coming here, and it really did instill that everybody had a value here, even small. I think that is a real big piece of the puzzle. Even from logs for all our heating and our syruping operation was all based on, I didn't purchase anything. I mean, our budget was $3,000. Like, how do you, you got to figure out a way. Well, I think the staff grew when I became pregnant with my first babe, and that was in 81, 82. And Brian Sullivan was one of my high school, I had a whole crew, a small crew of high school kids. Again, I would go in my little Subaru Justy and beat my horn at the school at 11 o'clock, and they'd all come running out, and we didn't, seatbelts weren't a big thing, it's just like, pilot! Okay, so I had this crew of 6 kids probably that would somehow always be here. And that Brian Sullivan was he was the most interested in agriculture. And so my first child was born in June, so he handled all the growing that year. And then we decided to put him on part-time. The town supported that. By then we were town employees. So, yeah, that's what happened. Money. The land was absolutely stunning. It was off the charts as far as fertility. So we just had to be very, very creative in how we spent money and then how we acquired money. And so then the next position was, we always called it the third position, which was Jane Harvey, who came in, and she did everything that we couldn't do. So she was in charge. That's when we started memberships. That's when we started donations, money donations versus just in-kind donations. She ran all the programs. She got all the teachers. I mean, she did everything that, so each job took on these different phases, and then as those jobs got too big, somebody else would, we found a way to have somebody else in there. But those are the three main positions of the farm: the director, the assistant director, and the third person. And then everything got divided after that. Well, the biggest thing about the membership program was the educational programs, especially the summer camp program. So once we could tie the membership program into the summer program registration system, again, it was all done on paper. We had no computers. It was all paper registrations, and we'd sit till 10 o'clock at night processing paper registrations and handwriting down every group of kids. And but we always managed. There was always somebody around to help us. And the biggest challenge we always had was the month of March. It's very rare for me to, even to this day, when I say March, it's like, like I'm going to Costa Rica next week, and I would never be able to go away in March. My whole life I couldn't go away in March because we birthed the animals and we did maple syruping, and the greenhouses were all starting. And so each of those pieces had to have other people involved in that process. And I had to have, I had an old man that was on my board who started all our seedlings, and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So there was always different crews of different people around here. Yeah. Yes, when we were having a festival here, again, we started the festivals and Jane managed those, and those were also a good income source, and it was a huge community pull. Like, people who could never come here would come here with their kids, and that was big. But anyway, there was a festival, and all of a sudden someone goes, "The pigs are loose!" And there's thousands of people here, and the pigs are running around the whole place. And they ended up over in the neighborhood behind us. And there we are, running with buckets of milk, trying to get the pigs in. And they all listened, and they all came in. But it always happens. Like, why do you stay in your pens all month long, and then today you decide to come out?
Yeah, they
so
knew.
That's an issue. I also used to have a red van from the town. We had a van and a truck. And I'd put the sheep in the van, and I'd go to the school systems. And in the gyms, they would get all the first graders, and I would shear a sheep. I'd drag the sheep out of the van I was so stupid and naive, into the gym. And I had my two little ones, too, because they came to work with me. And we'd go to the gyms, and I'd shear a sheep, and we'd talk about wool and fiber and blah, 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 blah. I had those 5 programs I had from 4-H, and we just worked with the school system. And the school system was incredibly supportive of us. I mean, they loved it to have access to the farm for free, and do things in the programs. So that didn't come out of their budget. And then eventually they bused the kids here. So. And we'd have the system where the kids get dropped off from that bus, and then the other kids would get on that bus and go back. And we'd time it right so that they weren't spending $300-400 on these buses to go back and forth with an empty bus. So we would time it so that, we could manage that money differently. The Woods program and the Gnomes program are vital to the survival of this farm because of the financial support that they provide the farm and the emphasis on those little kids to use the woods. The woods in organic agriculture are the thing that organic farmers should be looking towards and emulating. is how the forest grows. So the diversity of the forest, how the soils in the forest support that diversity, emphasizing that that's how we as organic farmers should be looking towards. If you lived in every part of the country and the world have different places. Ours in New England is the forest. But in the prairies, it's the prairies. And in the, deserts, it's other things. But you look to that environment as your example as to how to keep your land fertile and growing. You have to be flexible. You have to be flexible to be sustainable. So you have to be able to just, oh, that didn't work, or okay, I have to change that, or whatever it is. Most of the things that went wrong were in March.
Right. Okay.
I hate to say it that way, but either the greenhouses froze or the animal was birthing and had a major issue. And I remember stitching a goat's udder in the middle of March while the pans are boiling, and I'm like, okay, what else can happen here, Things like that.
Yeah.
And birthing animals and keeping them warm and snuggly. And it takes time to develop a system that works.
Yeah.
And I think after 35 years, I had that system working. The educational programs need to continue on the farming cycles. That's been a strong emphasis of mine. And the only way to teach what we're doing is to teach it at the time that it's happening. Like people say, well, why can't you shear sheep in February? Well, sorry, we can't do that, type of thing. So and that's part of the education. Well, every single thing that we do should be part of the education that we're doing, whether it's, you're blasting out what it is, or it's an experience that people experience, and it eventually keeps unfolding. My wish would be that it's still here. My wish would be that the town still supports those three positions, and that we are strong enough financially and whatever, community-wise, to keep the farm active, growing, selling, with as many people buying our food as possible. I could write a book.
Yeah.
We could do that. That would be good.
Would you? That'd be great.
If someone else types it and moves it along, I'll just sit here and talk, and we can fit them into a book.
Consider this your advert.
Yeah, exactly.
He wants to do it.
Have you read Julian Jack Rawson's? Head of NOFA. I worked in NOFA quite a bit. And they just wrote a book about farming with kids and their whole homesteading cycles. So it's kind of interesting. I just don't have the computer skills to do that. I don't know if there was anything specific. I just really believe in the sense of community and having as many people on the property as often as you can, and have free access to land and sun and woods and all that stuff, because it all fits together somehow.